Okay, everybody. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm going to try to speak up here so you can hear me through the phone. We're going to be, thank you for coming on short notice today. We are going to be talking about the prolonged heat event that will be taking place over the course of the next week. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about why this is different for typical summer in August and why we might be seeing some enhanced impacts associated with that. Again, if you can't hear me, I guess this is useless, but please dial into that audio conference for the information that you see there. It's also in your email. And please reference, if you haven't already, the attached document to the email that we sent out, kind of highlighting what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to dive right in. Right off the bat, like I said before, why is this something to the level where we are having a webinar about the heat? Isn't it always hot in August? This isn't typical summer heat, and I think you've probably seen us stress this up until this point, that we're talking about well above average. We're talking about 10 to 15 degrees above normal from August highs, and so that's going to get us well into the triple digits for many, many locations across the region. And here in Las Vegas specifically, we're going to be looking at temperatures above 110 potentially for several days. And so not only is it atypical summer heat, but it's going to be hot at night too. We've had a couple instances of this in a short term over the summer, but probably not to this length of time. And so we'll be struggling to get lows, especially in the Las Vegas Valley, below 90 degrees. And so if it's going to be that much of a struggle, then those that don't have access to regular air conditioning and things are going to be particularly at risk, because there will not be overnight relief associated with that. It may have some other impacts associated with that too. We'll talk about that in a second. And the other issue is with prolonged heat events like this, we also have these impacts increasing throughout the week. So it's a compounding nature of the fact that you have heat that from this magnitude and then this duration that ends up having us enhanced heat effects. You start the increase in phone calls, things of that sort. And so it may not be the initial day that it's hot that you end up having the biggest impact, but actually several days into the same heat that we had it. And this may persist into next weekend. The bad news here is that while there may still be an opportunity for us to cool down a little bit towards the end of next week, there are some indications in the longer run that we might be holding on to this heat for some period too. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So here's the little heat impact timeline, kind of reiterating what I already summarized. We're going to be seeing, starting today, actually, some places in southern Mojave County, Colorado River Valley, the typical hotter spots are going to start seeing heat risk air levels getting up into major and extreme. And by Sunday, you're going to be seeing that over a good portion of Mojave County, this extreme southern Nevada, and parts of like the Morongo Basin. And so impacts could start beginning as early as Saturday and Sunday in those locations. Moving into the early part of next week, that extreme heat risk is going to become more widespread across the region. So we're talking about Death Valley, potentially even southern parts of Owens Valley, California, the Las Vegas Valley for sure, almost all of Mojave County, and of course, with the exception of the higher terrain. But even in those higher terrain areas, you're probably going to be seeing pretty moderate or well above average temperatures there too. So if people are seeking higher elevations to seek temperature relief, they're not going to find that much. And so that's another concern to be talking about there. But the desert valleys will be struggling to fall below 90 degrees. We really want to stress that the nighttime temperatures, you can't count on those to be providing any relief, especially for those that don't have access to air conditioning. So your transient home loss populations might be starting to see impacts like that really start to rise at the beginning of part of next week and throughout at least the midweek period. And then, of course, the demand what this is going to have on energy as well. I mean, you're going to have people that are probably going to be, if they're not already, running their AC all day long, all day night, all through the night, and to maintain a temperature that is going to be steadily increasing throughout the night. So we struggle to reach 90 degrees. You can see them working really overtime there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we might see some power outages associated with the extent of the heat that we're going to be seeing. And then again, next weekend, there's low confidence that temperatures might start to climb, but the thing with that is that they may not. We're still seeing some indications that they may hold on just as strong as they have been throughout the week. But even if they do decline, they're not going to decline a substantial amount to the point where we won't still have lingering heat impacts associated with that. They may be more moderate at that time, but we'll still have them. So that's what we're looking like with our very steamy next week forecast. And so we keep referencing heat risk. I just wanted to kind of remind you, if you don't already know what that means, Heat risk, when we make these heat decisions and we end up evaluating whether or not a warning needs to be issued, it's more than just the temperature. It's not just the high temperature that day. It's also the minimum temperature, as we've been stressing, but it's also how long has that heat been going on. So the compounding nature of heat is built into the heat risk. And so when you're seeing these purples and oranges and reds, and then the legend on the right, you can see that it becomes increasingly more of a risk for those, not just people with health or heat-related illness complications usually, but the general population. So once you start seeing the reds and the magentas, that's when you're talking about the entire population is at a risk if they're exposed to this without the ability to have any relief. For instance, not having hydration or air conditioning of that kind. And so what you're seeing here is actually the regional heat risk forecast for several states here from on Monday, August 17th. That's actually the peak heating that's forecast, but only by a degree or so. And so this map looks very similar from Monday all the way through Thursday. And so you can basically copy and paste this one with little differences between now and a good portion of next week. So what are those impacts? We've really been trying to stress this. Your homeless and transient population will be at considerable risk, especially because of the fact there's not going to be an overnight temperature relief that's going to be available. In addition to that, any person or pet left in an unattended vehicles, and we're talking about minutes here, are going to be at an extreme risk for injury or even death. This happens plenty of times during the summer anyway, but we're talking about very, very short periods of time, especially if it's a child, especially if it's a pet, in these situations. So don't be surprised to see those calls be on the increase as well. We already mentioned the demand for energy consumption, and would not be surprised if that resulted in a power outage here or there. And this is going to be at a particularly vulnerable time with the temperature that we're talking about. And so that's something to be looking out for as well during this period. And then the increasing heat-related emergency calls each day as that heat stress compounds. And that's really something that we're trying to drive home here, is that while you might not initially see a huge increase in heat-related impacts, those will probably be increasing throughout the course of the next several days. And so, yes, our areas here are really resilient to heat, but for record temperatures and record low temperatures, or record high low temperatures over the course of several days are going to have a compounding effect. And if you wanted to see what some more of those heat-related impacts are, here's some guidance on the right provided by CDC and what those will be. And there's a link down there, and I can share that with everybody after the call as well if you wanted to use this for social media purposes or anything of that sort. So that's the gist. I know it was short and sweet, but that's we really wanted to stress that this is not just any type of heat wave. This is anomalous one. This is one that could be breaking records both in high and minimum temperatures. And so what we were curious about also is to be able to have a little bit of a back and forth on what your operations will be. Because this is a rather uncommon event, we could use the learning on what that operations will be, and also how our service can help provide those decision support needs that you might have. So if anybody is willing to share that, feel free to do so, and we'll be taking notes here on how we can help you out. But that's all I have for now. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves and speak up or ask any questions, I'm here to answer them for you.